How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I have these two gentlemen with me. I've got Jason Ciaramella
Good job.
and Michael Walsh.
Good
And
job.
yeah, pretty good at that, Walsh. I had to practice that one. I had to practice that one a little bit. But today we're talking about something special. I'm a big fan of the Creepshow comics that Skybound has been putting out. Big fan of the movies and the TV show on Shudder. But this is a special Creepshow book. It's Joe Hill's Wolverton Station. And we're here to talk a little bit about it. I had the chance to read it last night. Solid. Now, a little bit of information. Jason is the one that adapted it into comic book form. So he wrote the script and Michael drew it. And Jason, you adapted Joe Hill's story.
Yeah.
And this isn't your first time doing something with the Creepshow, though, right?
Right. Yeah. This is my third Creepshow project. Second in the last year, third overall. And I had written the episode by the Silver Water of Lake Champlain for Shudder, for the Creepshow television series and season 1. And I did I was a concept writer for a Magic the Gathering Creepshow crossover that came out late 2023.
And how does all that differ? Like when you're writing, I mean, it's got to be so different.
Oh yeah, the comics was a little bit like the card set that we did had comics on the back, like small Creepshow comics. So I wrote the concept for the art for the front of the card and then wrote a little script for the comic that is featured on the back. So that was pretty similar. Writing for screen is a completely different experience because you have to, work with budgets and things like that. So it's, you're working under a completely different set of rules.
And I assume, okay, but when you were writing the script, that was something that you wrote yourself. It's an original story.
No. That's an adaptation also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the way that this project came about is that I've adapted a bunch of Joe Hill's work over the years. And so the Creepshow episode was one of those based on his short story by the Silver Water of Lake Champlain. And so, I guess people were pretty satisfied with that. And so when this project came up, he asked if I'd be interested in doing this one.
And you said yes.
Immediately. Yeah. I love Creepshow since, probably the first time I saw it was 80, maybe 86, 87. I saw the first one for the first time. So I've been a fan for a while.
Yeah. People, kids in the 50s had the EC comics, right? They had Tales from the Crypt, Haunt of Fear, Vault of Horror. Kids in the 80s, we had Creepshow movies, the things we weren't supposed to see. And I remember as a comic book reader, I oh my gosh, I sought out the Creepshow comic because I thought it was a thing, right? Like that it was real. And then I found one, funny enough, when I was in high school in my high school library. Like my librarian was a big fan of the Creepshow movies.
Yeah.
It was an adaptation. But I didn't know anything about EC Comics at the time. I didn't know it borrowed heavily from that.
Yeah, I think, did Bernie Wrightson illustrate that adaptation?
I know he did some of it, yeah. I still have a copy of it. I have a softcover copy that they just reprinted.
I was gonna say, I feel like mine's right behind me, but
yeah, the one I found at the library was library bound, so it was a hardcover. I was so jealous. I was like, oh, I gotta find something like that. I thought that was so cool. Cool. Michael, how did you get involved in this project? I know you've been working on the Silver Coin. It's another horror anthology I love. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. How did you get involved?
I wrote and drew one of the Creepshow short stories for volume 2. And when my editor on that, Alex Antone, emailed me with the outline of all the different writers and artists involved in that second volume and the publishing schedule, on that outline, it had Joe Hill and Jason's name bolded kind of separate from the second volume, and then there was kind of a question mark where the artist was, and I said to my editor, what's going on here with this little sidebar with Jason and Joe, because they're both writers whose work I love, and depending on what it is and if I have time, I'd love to be involved in some way. And he had said to me that they're doing a Creepshow one shot, and I think things might have fell through with the artist, so we might be on the hunt for someone. And it just worked out perfectly that our schedules lined up, and I was able to do it. So it was very serendipitous.
Okay. So you came on board because you were seeking it out. I like that.
Yeah, I wasn't actively seeking it out until I knew about it, I guess. Because I had just my other Creepshow gig, yeah.
Now, you've been working on the Silver Coin, which is another, in case people aren't familiar with it, it is being published by Image Comics. And I've talked about it on my channel before. I've done an overview of the first trade paperback and second one. But that was it Chip Zdarsky?
It was all different writers. So when I initially pitched it as a mini series, the writers that I had involved were Chip Zdarsky, Kelly Thompson, Ed Brisson, and Jeff Lemire. And then I write the 5th issue of each arc as well. So I've written 3 issues thus far. And it did really, really well. So I decided to make it into an ongoing. And so I've had a ton of different writers involved at this point, including like people like James Tinian and Pornsack Peachet Show. So I've been really lucky to work with a ton of different writers in the comics world, some of my favorite working writers, and we put something really fun together, and people are really liking it. And we're coming back for another arc at the end of this year. I was on paternity leave for a bit, so I was taking some small projects to
congratulations,
so I can get through the next arc of Silver Coin.
Okay, so I assume both of you like horror just a little bit, right? Fascinated by. Were both of you into the comic scene, like into the comic aspects of like horror comics?
You want to go ahead, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first comic that I ever read was an issue of Cranky, Crawly, Creepy Things, I think from like 1974. It was one of my uncles when I was growing up, and he left around the house, and I must have read that thing 50 times growing up, and used to copy the illustrations out of it and everything. So I guess you could say that my very first experience with comics was horror. I'm in and out of it over the years. I think that there are a lot of really good like examples of the genre, that are out in the market right now, Silver Coin being one of them. But I also think that there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't hit well for me. I think horror is difficult to do in comics. I've always said that. It's hard to give people the willies in a comic when all you have for a vehicle is a transition. So really, you have to have a combination of art and storytelling that, just really kind of hits the nerve the right way. But like I said, I'm definitely picking up good stuff as it comes out. But I'm on and off with it.
You hit something there that's true. It is. Oh, okay. My wife and my cousin completely scare easy, like body horror, psychological horror, even music, the tension, the build up, jump scares, that gets them every time. And I wish I was like that, but I was a kid watching all these horror movies I probably shouldn't have been watching, reading all these little horror books that I probably shouldn't have been reading. So it takes a lot for me to be scared. So you are right. It is difficult to do. And there are a lot of hit and misses out there when it comes to these things. That's why I really, really like Creepshow, the magazine, and the Silver Coin, these anthologies, because more than likely there's going to be something in there that I enjoy. Something's going to hit. Manga horror also tends to be, well, monsters psychologically scary, but I think like Junji Ito's artwork, like it's really creepy, and that
Yeah.
really. But then again, now my daughters go to like Hot Topic and they have like Junji Ito T-shirts, and like it's so weird, and kids are
It's
wearing them to school.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that's so edgy and scary when my kids that are 15 and 12, soon to be 15, are wearing shirts by Junji Ito. So
Yeah.
it is it's a little harder to sell that. But yeah, you're right. It is difficult to do it. So then how does that inspire both of you to try to tell a story? Because it is different than the movies, right? It's different than TV shows or even audio.
I I find that if I can try and creep myself out while I'm drawing it, then it'll be successful in creeping out the audience. Because I also I'm a huge horror person as well, and I'm pretty desensitized at this point to generally to scares in movies and books and comics. So if I can make myself feel that kind of tingly despair when I'm drawing it, then I know that it's going to connect with some of the readers for sure.
So do you tend to make it creepier? Well, I don't know. How does that work for you as an artist, Michael? Like, do you see a script that comes your way, and do you ever think to yourself, I think if I change that a little bit in the art, we can make it creepier and make it work better?
Yeah, I think all the time, and I do, but not. It depends on the script. I think with the script for Wolverton, it was so tight that I didn't really need, and like the amount of beats per page was really well paced. So I didn't really need to move things around. It all was right there in the script, and it really worked. So it was kind of my job from that point just to sell it and make it work on the page as well. It was working in the script. But I do now, especially that I'm writing more, I feel a little bit more confidence in telling writers that I'd like to edit the page a little bit and change the structure of it to make it work a little bit better, because I do think that a lot of times an artist has a better idea of how things could be paced so that there's more tension leading up to the scare moment on the page turn or wherever it is. But yeah, I try and really play up the tension and the mood before the really grotesque imagery comes, which is what makes the reader anticipate it happening. And then you get the page turn, and then you hope that page turn does something to them emotionally when they get there.
And when adapting the short story, Jason, do you tend to try to change things up a little bit, or are you limited to what you can change? Like, especially when we're talking about Joe Hill.
Yeah, Joe and I have worked together quite a bit over the years, and I think there's been trust that's built up where he gives me a fair amount of liberties when I'm doing an adaptation. So, when he's writing, or I think most writers are writing a short story or any long fiction, they're not necessarily thinking about how that is going to translate if it's turned into a comic or something else. So comics are completely different media. So I'll go through and pick what I think works, and most times there's some filler, like they're not filler, but there's additional elements that are added to the story that are not part of, or added to the comic that are not part of the original short story. Like in this episode of Creepshow, the main character Saunders in the short story is just like a shithead business guy. He's a ruthless businessman, and I changed him to be a horror memorabilia collector. I thought it would be fun to connect more with the audience. It was more fun for me to write. I thought it would be more fun for Michael to draw. So we worked that element in there. Other than that, and the little twist at the end that we added by changing the beginning, most of it is in the short story. So there wasn't a ton of added content in this one, in the adaptation. The short story was pretty well full of fun scenes to be able to adapt.
So tell me the pitch of this one. I got the chance to read it, but what makes this one stand out above like a lot of the other short stories that Joe Hill has done? Why pick this one?
Well, I didn't get to pick it, but I would say that it is. I would say that it's a natural Creepshow story. It's got an element of humor to it, which I love. I love horror comedy. It's got a nice little twist at the end. It's got some, pretty grotesque visuals in it. So I think it's, it's kind of gift wrapped as a Creepshow project.
I assume in the original short story, the Creeper was in it, right?
No.
Introducing okay.
No.
That would have been pretty interesting to have the character in there.
Yeah, just a guy on a train, basically, with werewolves. That was the original story.
Yeah, so tell me the pitch. Tell me the pitch of this story for people that haven't read it, that like horror, that could be interested in it. The book, by the way, comes out on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Perfect timing.
2 days from today.
Yeah.
Michael, do you want to do that? Do you want to?
You're the writer. You got to pitch. You got to do the pitch.
Yeah.
I'm just the lowly artist on this one.
I would say that the pitch for this is that it is a fun and fast-moving, bloody werewolf story where a shithead is really put through the ringer. That's the pitch. But it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. It moves fast. It's gory. It's
funny.
A lot going. Yeah.
When I saw Creepshow, the book that was library bound at my high school library, I remember thinking, man, it would be cool to see a lot of these collections in this hardcover format. Then later on, I found the Gemstone Publishing collections that were done in black and white, and then eventually Dark Horse and Gemstone reprinted them in color. Do you all ever think about doing things in black and white, adding like a creepy, weird horror element to the stories? Michael, you as an artist, like,
yeah,
I'm sure you've seen that a lot.
Yeah, I did. When I had just gotten off, finished up with a superhero book, I did Justice League Black Hammer with Jeff Lemire.
Yeah,
it's a crossover book for Dark Horse and DC. I knew that I had pitched Silver Coin and got it picked up, so I knew that I was going to be drawing horror for a couple years, and I wanted to kind of flex those muscles a little bit and work them. So I did a little web comic that's a journal web comic called The Sleep Stories. And I was just journaling out some of my nightmares. I've had night terrors since I was a little kid. So I always wrote them down just to kind of like expel the demon, and I just thought it would be a fun exercise to draw some of those dreams and kind of test some techniques that I wanted to use on Silver Coin. So I did that webcomic in black and white, and I think it was actually quite successful. I have plans right now. The Silver Coin issue that I'm currently working on is going to be black and white, but with color elements as well. So it's mixing two different techniques because of the way that the story works. I thought it would be a fun experimental way to do the art for it. So I don't want to really spoil the plot of that one, but there is going to be a semi black and white issue of Silver Coin. So I think people will have a lot of fun with that. But personally, I think black and white comics work really well for horror. I mean, like you said, Junji Ito is probably the biggest horror artist, even in the Western comics market now. And his stuff is all black and white, and almost all manga is all black and white. So I think they do some of the best horror stories in sequential narrative. And the black and white really works for them. So I don't know. I think it's a case-by-case example, and in some stories it'll fit for, and some stories it won't. But I'd love to do more black and white stuff. I think it's really fun, and it presents a new challenge than working in color does.
My goodness, I think this question might be better for Nia to answer. By the way, big thank you to Nia for putting this interview together. But do you all know if this right here, because this is a one shot, right? It's not a issue number 12 or 13. will it be collected in one of the collected editions that they've been doing? I know Skybound's been doing trade paperbacks. I'd love to see hardcovers done in that old school Creepshow way, like when the kid got the comic at the beginning. Oh man, that would be so awesome. But yeah, do you all know if this will be collected eventually in one of the collected editions, trade paperbacks?
I'm not sure, but I would have to assume they're going to put it somewhere. I don't think that they would just release it as a floppy and then never collect it. So I'm not sure, but yeah.
I have a lot of viewers that are trade waiters. So, and Nia said no word yet, but it is very possible. Thank you, Nia. Because I love anthology comics. These horror comics that have come back, like, been a part of me that's been missing because we didn't get a lot of it back in the early 90s, and I mean they were gone for a long time, and a lot of it had to do, of course, with the Comics Code Authority and the whole EC line just being destroyed by the seduction of the innocent. But I think we've come a long way.
I mean, even in the aughts and the 2010s, there wasn't really that much horror in the Western comic market. I remember when I started working professionally and I was working at Marvel, I was always hunting down all the new horror stuff because there just wasn't that much of it. But I feel like there's been a bit of a renaissance over the last few years in horror comics because people have realized that there's a market for it and people buy it.
Yes. Trade waiters. That's right. We're trade waiters. Let me just take a couple of questions here from the chat, and I know you gentlemen are busy. See, this black and white, I think you went through that. And let's see. Oh, it's a good one. What are the differences in drawing a psychological horror over body gore? Like body horror.
I think with psychological horror, it can be so focused on the character and building up a mood and trying to get into the inner workings of them, that it's quite nuanced. With body gore and body horror, you're really trying to do something that is just the most grotesque, disturbing thing you can think of. So they're two actually very different ways to think about horror and ways to freak people out. So it is quite tough. Like, I think that psychological horror might be even harder in comics because you don't have, as an artist, not only are you the cinematographer and the director and your set dressing, but you're also every actor too. So you've got to really think a lot about so many different facets of the art. And with body horror, you're thinking about one big dynamic image. So it's two very different ways to think about drawing.
And Jason, I have to ask you from a writer's perspective, when you're writing something like Matt just described, Michael just described the grotesque and like the scene that's just gonna make people sick. How do you write that into the script? Do you let the artist just carry it, or do you get the script of like, oh, and you need this, his left eye needs to be bulging out, or is it just have fun?
I mean, my scripts are usually pretty light on description. I mean, if there's a small moment or a small detail that I feel like I'd like to see, I'll mention it. But for the most part, I'll use a general description and trust in, the artist that I'm working with to make the best of it. I just feel like that gives them more freedom, and I'm not an artist, so even though a script is kind of, it's really guidelines, in the end they know what's going to look better on the page. So I try to keep my descriptions light, and I think that with the artists that I've worked with has always produced the best work. I mean, the outcome has always been much better than anything I would have written fully, a long description of for them to draw. Because then you're really I just feel like you're really, you're shackling them in ways that I don't think it is at all necessary. So less is better, I think, when writing descriptions for these kinds of things.
Is it the same treatment that you gave like the script when you did by the silver water of Lake Champlain? I mean,
it's a different experience. you're giving like with TV scripts, you're giving like they're pretty short general descriptions of like scenery and things like that, and then the director is handling whatever the actor, their emotional state, or they're responsible for things like that. So it's even leaner, I think, when you're writing for TV or film.
Okay, so what else are you gentlemen going to be working on? Michael, you said Silver Coin is coming back, right?
Yeah, so Silver Coin will be coming back at the end of the year. I've got an image book that I'm writing for a different artist, so I won't be drawing it. It's a cyberpunk sci-fi, kind of like a John Wick in space story, revenge epic. And that'll be coming out in the fall. And then I've got a big announcement on another book that I'm doing, that I'm drawing and writing, work for hire project that will be announced at the end of this month, I believe. So stay tuned to my socials, and there'll be some big announcements soon.
Awesome. What about you, Jason?
For me, 2024 is the 10th anniversary of Seas for Cthulhu. It's my line of children's books and plushies. So we have 10 years. We're doing a big oversized edition. There'll be another new book this year. So that's like in the immediate future within the next few months. But then I have a couple of comics related projects for the end of the year that I can't talk about right now, unfortunately.
Got you. And let's see. The different covers are awesome. Who were the artists on those?
I did the A cover. Maria Wolf did a cover, and then who did the other one? Jason.
Gabriel Rodriguez.
Gabriel Rodriguez, yes, who did the B cover, I believe. They're all great. I really loved both of the other covers.
Yeah.
Do you have the book beside you, the Cthulhu book, Jason?
I got a few of them.
Yeah, can you just so people can
this,
see what it is? I'm going to highlight you.
Yeah, we do. We do a bunch of them.
Oh, so they're little cardboard books.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they're little board books.
And you said you want to do an oversized one?
Well, it's a 10th anniversary, so we're doing a oversized version of the original, which I don't have an English version of here.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, congratulations, man. It sounds like you guys are going to be busy with these books. And Michael, I'm just going to pitch this to you: oversized hardcover collection of Silver Coin. Remember that.
I would love to. Once we get through the next arc, I'm going to have that conversation with the people I need to talk to at Image, and hopefully we can do a 20-issue hardcover, which I think would be really, really cool.
Oh yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. And I love those hardcovers, dude.
Yeah, you got some heavy hardware on that shelf behind you. Those are
these things are weapons, man. You drop that on somebody breaking into your house, it's over.
There's a episode right there.
And I know Robert Kirkman loves hardcovers too, with Invincible and Walking Dead. So I'm pretty sure Creepshow will show up sometime in that format.
I hope so.
I see those guitars behind you, Michael. Do you listen to music while you get in the mood for drawing horror? How about you for writing? Do either of you?
Yeah, I listen to a ton of music. When I'm drawing, I usually am listening to audiobooks because I find I can absorb the dialogue better. If I'm drawing, I'm like kind of using part of my brain, and then part of my brain is listening to a book. But if I'm writing, I'm often listening to music to get in the mood. And I listen to, similar to Jason, a lot of soundtracks. A lot of times when I'm writing horror, I really like the new Suspiria soundtrack, the most recent Suspiria movie. The soundtrack is by Tom York, so it's got a bit of that dissonant Radiohead vibe, but really creepy and atmospheric. It's a really good one for writing for me personally.
I haven't seen the new Suspiria, but I heard it. Okay, so I heard that they took the script of the original and didn't really change it.
It feels quite different than the original, so I think that's why it's pretty divisive. But personally, I thought it was a great film. I thought it was really well directed and well acted.
Oh my gosh, the original soundtrack was creepy. What was it? Goblin, right?
Goblin,
did the original.
yeah.
Yeah, rocked it, man. That stuff was awesome. All right. And Jason, did you say what you listened to when you're
Also
writing?
soundtrack stuff. It has to. I mean, I can't really when I'm writing. I can't listen to anything with words because it gets in and
Yeah.
it distracts me. But a lot of soundtrack stuff, like Tron Legacy, and try to usually maybe match up with whatever genre I'm working on. Yes, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, I like matching the genres. I wrote an all ages escapist fantasy graphic novel a couple of years ago, and all I was listening to was the Spirited Away soundtrack and ending story soundtrack, and
that's awesome.
These big epic instrumental scores. Is pretty fun.
I'm always curious what people listen to when they're writing or drawing, especially horror, because Suspiria makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Suspiria soundtrack makes sense when you're drawing horror, but be surprising to see like some kind of I interviewed somebody a couple of years ago and they listened to 80s cartoon intros while they were drawing horror. Yeah. I was like, that's awesome.
That's good stuff.
He was like, I just play it on the loop, man, and I'm drawing horror. It's great.
I had a sound. I was a brand writer at Hasbro for a while, working on Star Wars and GI Joe and Marvel, and I definitely listened to '80s cartoon soundtracks and the different whatever audio was available from like those properties and like the current Marvel Universe scores or like John Williams Star Wars stuff. That stuff was great to listen to while I was working on those properties. It just gets you excited,
Oh my gosh. So I asked Daniel Warren Johnson, who's currently working on Transformers, what he listens to. And he was like, oh, I just put the Golden Bachelor on in the background while I'm writing and drawing Transformers. that was a surprise. I was expecting some Transformers the movie soundtrack.
That's the Transformers the movie soundtrack from the original animated film.
Oh my gosh,
top 5 for me. Love that soundtrack.
It's phenomenal.
But it's all real songs, so I can't. It's tough to listen to.
Well, even the score is great. I love the score. Same guy that did Rocky IV. I cannot remember his name. What's a horror comic you guys would love to have adapted into a live action TV show or movie?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I thought Pornsack's book Infidel from a couple of years ago was really good, and I think that would make a really good movie.
That's what I was going to go with. That book creeped me out.
Yeah. That art by, I think it's Aaron Campbell drew it, right? It was really, really great stuff.
Oh my gosh, that just creepy imagery. It creeped me out. That's a good one.
Scott Snyder wrote a comic a while ago. I don't know if it's Witches or
he did write
something about a tree.
Yeah, that was Witches. Yeah,
it's skipping, but I always thought that would be great as like a serialized TV show.
Yeah, I agree.
The Silver Coin could also be a great anthology horror series. Just throwing that out there, Michael.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Creepshow competitor.
Yeah, no promise. I'm doing my best. No promises, but cogs are turning. Let's say that.
It would be cool. I got one last question for both of you. Actually, it's kind of a two-parter question. Do you have any advice for anybody that's trying to break it into comics as a writer or as an artist? Like, what kind of advice did you wish somebody could give you at your start?
Do you want to start, Jason?
Sure. I made a mistake of kind of taking like close to 15 years off from writing in my middle adult life. And I would say that if you love making comics, just keep doing it, try not to focus on maybe selling your work, but focus on completing your work and getting it done. And meet people in comics, because I would say that the majority of people working in comics got their job but because they knew somebody in comics, or they made a good impression on someone, you know, at a convention. So meet people in comics, you know, build a circle of friends and that, you know, have like interests, and just keep doing it. And, you know, team up with artists, get whatever you need to do to, you know, finish the work. And then, you know, if you can't publish it, which is completely understandable, just you can put things online for people to see. So there's a lot of avenues out there for writers and artists to get their work done. But most importantly, just keep at it and finish the work. If, you know, there's a lot of people just do it. They never actually finish projects. Nothing ever gets illustrated. And, you know, you can spin and spin and spin for years, decades, and nothing happens. But if you finish work and you're putting it out there, you're going to get better. You meet people who are doing what you want to do, and, you know, the connections happen, and that creates opportunities, I think.
Yeah, and bouncing off of what Jason said, because he covered a lot there, don't start off with your magnum opus. Don't start off by trying to write or draw even a mini series or even a full issue. I think, honestly, the best thing to do if you haven't really written much or you haven't drawn much, but you know that this is something that you want to try out, is draw or write 5-page short stories, 5 to 10-page short stories, and do a bunch of those. And will notice a significant improvement in every new story between them. Because I find, like, even for me, over 10 years having done this as a pro, I find between my projects, I decompress a little bit. And then when I start my next project, the art's significantly better. And I always notice that improvement when I'm taking that little gap between projects. I don't notice it within the same project. So if at the beginning, you're going to get better exponentially every time you draw, every time you write. So taking on like little small gigs that are 5 to 10 pages, you're going to grow way quicker than trying to do something longer, and you'll be way more likely to finish those little things. So, you know, if you were to draw or write 4 or 5-page short stories, then you could collect them into a single issue of 4 stories, print it out on your computer, bring it to a convention, give it to some artists, show some editors, and see what shakes out of that. You know, put them online for free. People can read them online. Like, it's about, like Jason said, getting some work done, getting it out there, and getting better and finishing things.
Some great advice, guys. Thank you all so much. And on that note, I'm going to wrap this interview up because I know both of you gentlemen are busy. But really quick, I love Creepshow, but no idea what comics to start with. New to comics in general. Go to your local comic book shop on Wednesday and pick up this latest Creepshow comic that both Jason and Michael have been working on. And all you got to do is just go to your local comic book shop. Creepshow, Joe Hill's Wolverton Station is all you need to ask for. It comes out this Wednesday. So there you go. And that's the best place to start. It's a one-shot. It's not a continuing story. And if you love the Creepshow movies, or if you love the TV show, Jason's written one of the episodes, this definitely has that kind of feel to it. So that's the advice. And then get the trades because they're great. And get Silver Coin too, because that's really good too. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you everybody for watching. Smash that like button on the way out. And again, this book comes out on Wednesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. And what better way to say I love you than getting a bunch of werewolves on a train? That's it, everybody. Have a great one.